Hi everybody, it's great to be back here in Itamar. We are continuing our lessons on prophecy. And last lesson we spoke about an introduction to prophecy, and my goal in this lecture series is to bring to your attention our great sages that write about prophecy and the different directions that we see amongst our Gishonim, our sages, where it will help us understand when we study the Bible. We'll get a greater insight into what our prophets have told us inside their amazing teachings by knowing, what prophecy is all about. In order to continue what we spoke about last time, we ended up with Maimonides and discussing the different levels of angels and mentioning that the lowest level, there were 10 angelic levels, and the lowest one called Ishim, Ish in Hebrew is man. That level is the level that angels actually spoke to the prophets. They had their prophetic visions connecting to these angels called Ishim, okay? And they were, since their level was close to human beings, and that's the 10th level we spoke about. Before we go on in our teachings about prophecy, I want to give a little understanding or a little historical framework of who Maimonides is, and we hear about him a lot. I mention him very often. We're going to be reading a lot of his works, and it's important to know who our great giants are and where do they come from. So Maimonides, for example, the Rambam, his name was Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon. Moshe, the son of Maimon, that was his father's name. He was born in 1138 in Cordova, Spain. The Rambam was, he passes away later on in 1204 in Fastat, which is the ancient name of Cairo in Egypt. So the Rambam passes away later in 1204. But for his lifespan, the Rambam was extremely successful and a giant of Torah. His father, Rabbi Maimon, he was a judge, a dayan, a judge meaning that he was a great rabbinical leader in the city in Cordova, Spain. And he received his Torah from a rabbi named Rabbi Yosef Migash. Migash, again, was one of the great leaders, rabbinical leaders beforehand, and which was known to be the student of the Rif, Rabbi Yitzchak El-Fassi. Again, this is, we're talking about the Sholshelet, a chain of great rabbis going all the way back to the Gaonic period. And the Rambam was just a continuation of that line, but he was a giant of giants. And in 1148, after the radical Muslims entered Spain, the Rambam and his family were forced to go into exile, and they traveled from place to place looking for a haven, a safe haven. That was the lot of the Jews that we know throughout the Dark Ages. And the Rambam, in 1160, they made their way and they came to Fez, Morocco. And in Morocco, the Rambam began to work on his famous writings. We know the Rambam wrote, and we'll speak about that in a moment, what he wrote, some of his great works. And at the same time, the Rambam began to study medicine, where he became a doctor, and that was his profession, his livelihood, his life's livelihood, where he made a living from. In 1165, the family left northern Africa, Morocco, and they came to the land of Israel. And unfortunately, their settling in Israel didn't go well. It was very difficult conditions to be in Israel at the time, but they tried. So they were forced to go to Egypt, to Cairo. Cairo is Cairo. And there was, if you're familiar with there's a group called the Karaim, the Karaites. And they were very, very rooted in to the society there in Egypt. And their influence on society and on religion was felt very, very strongly there. And the rabbis in fact, the Rambam, of course, the great rabbis, they had to push, and teach very strongly to push away the influence of this dangerous sect called the Karaites. The Rambam was appointed the head of the congregation, the head of the area, of course, as an expert in all areas of Torah. He wrote many, many works. He wrote letters, and he, not only that, when he was in Cairo, he was also appointed as the private doctor of Salah al-Din, him and his family. So he was really very, very busy with his medical profession as well. And the Rambam is known to write, he wrote tremendous works in Jewish law, known as the Mishnah Torah. He wrote as well his famous philosophical work, The Guide to the Perplexed. Later on in his life, he wrote a commentary on the Mishnah and many other works the Rambam wrote. He wrote books on medicine as well. And he was just a giant, a tremendous giant in what's it called? In our history of our sages. Very few that says that there's an expression that's written on the tomb. The Rambam is buried in Israel and in Tveria, in Tiberias, and it says on his tomb, from Moshe ad Moshe lo kam Moshe. From Moses to Moses, there never came another Moses, because the Rambam's name was Moses, Moshe. So fascinating you think about it. A little history before we study the words of these great sages, to know who they are, and and to actually, when you connect to their life stories, it brings it much more home. I think it's a much better way of, when you're studying a lot of times about Torah, all kinds of teachings, you want to connect them out to the rabbis that brought down such great teachings, and our legacy is in these rabbis that literally passed down the chain from Moses on Sinai. Fascinating. But anyway, I want to get back, but we will mention, God willing, my goal is to bring down, also to help give you that historical frame as we study from these great rabbis. But now getting back to what Maimonides was studying, Maimonides, the laws called Yisodei Torah, the foundations of Torah, and there the Rambam introduces us in the first 4 chapters of Foundations of Torah to important concepts that we're going to talk about now and have to do with prophecy and have to do with esoteric teachings of Torah. And the Rambam says, and I'll quote what he says in the Hilchot Yisodei Torah, in the laws of Foundations of Torah, he says there are 10 commandments. He's going to write about 10 different Torah commandments. 6 of them are positive and 4 are negative in this section of law called Foundations of Torah. You can go online and actually find online translations in English of the Rambam. You can actually read if you want to read the whole chapters regarding these laws. And the Rambam brings down 10 principles, 10 laws he's going to focus on. One is to know that there is a God. That's one of the positive commandments. We must know that there is a God in the world. Number 2, shelo yalev machshava sheyesh sham Elohe acher zulatei Hashem. The second one is to know that there is no other God but God himself, no one else. God doesn't share his dominion to anyone else. There's only one God. And bringing down the concept of another one, God forbid, is totally contradicting, defining the concept of what God is. And that's law number 3, where the Rambam talks about liyachado. We have a commandment to unify. We are the unification, to understand what that means, of liyached Hashem, to understanding the unity of God. La'ahava, to love God, is the 4th commandment. The 5th commandment is to fear God. So there's a difference of loving God and fearing God. The 6th law is to sanctify God. The 7th law is not to profane the name of God. The 8th law talks about not to erase anything that God is, God's name is called on them, not to erase those things. The Shmom and the Navi, the 9th law is to listen very carefully to the words of the prophets. And the 10th law is not to try God. And all these 10 important commandments are what the Rambam writes about in the laws of the foundations of Torah. But again, here our focus is going to be more focused on the chapters where he focuses on prophecy. Okay, so that's, I just wanted to mention it. It's a good thing to do, to one day for us to study all those chapters in the foundations of Torah of Maimonides. But anyway, now we're going to be reading let's get back to the 2nd chapter of the laws of the foundations of Torah. And the Rambam writes like this: Dvarim elu she'amarnu binyan zeh b'shnei prakim elu. The first 2 chapters of the foundations of Torah, the Rambam says, they are like a drop in the sea of what we must learn in order to explain these areas. And this, ube'el kol ha'ikarim sheb'shnei prakim, and explaining all these principles, and these 2 chapters is what's known as Maaseh Merkavah. It's known as the work of the chariot. What is the Rambam referring to? The Rambam is referring to the most esoteric teachings of Judaism, which refer to understanding what we can as human beings grasp about God, about the angelic world. The Rambam describes as Maaseh Merkavah. This is what is known as the work of the chariot. These are the the esoteric teachings, what the Rambam says. And he goes on to say, Tzivu chachamim harishonim, and the rabbis commanded us, shelo lidrosh b'dvarim elu, not to learn these things, ela leish echad bilvad, only to learn on an individual basis. V'hu sheyeh chacham mevin midato, this person that he teaches must be a wise person and he understands on his own. When you have a person who's capable to be a student of really getting deep of delving deeply into these teachings, then you give him just the Rashi Prakim, the keys of the topics that you're referring to. You're revealing him a little bit of it, and he's smart enough to really grasp the whole picture. And he will know the entire thing and the depth of it. So we're talking about very high-level students that you can literally bring them the basics and they can go on from there. The Rambam goes on to say, "Udvarim elu," and these things, amukim hem ad lema'od, they're very extremely deep. Ve'ein kol dad v'dad ruya lesovlan, and not everyone is capable of grasping the depths of these teachings. V'aleim amar Shlomo b'chokhmato b'derech mashal, and this is what King Solomon said, "Kvasim lilvushecha." He brings down in Proverbs, "Kvasim lilvushecha." Kvasim literally means, right, the literal name of kvasim is obviously sheep, which have wool, which you use for your garments. But the rabbis learn out, "Kachamu chachamim befeirush mashal hazeh, dvarim shehem kivshono le'olam yu levushecha." He goes, things, the rabbis learn, that's a play on words, kvasim can be turned into kvashim, things that are hidden. That these should be your garments. What do you mean? Kilomar lach levadach, right? A garment is a very private thing you put on yourself. These things have to be kept secret. Ve'al tidrosh otam berabim, you shall not teach them within the masses. Ve'aleim amar yu lecha levadecha, as it says, they should be to you alone. Ve'ein lezarim, and not to strangers. Itach ve'aleim amar dvash v'chalav tachat leshonech, as it says in the Song of Songs, honey and milk under your tongue, right? So keep it inside, keep it secret. Kach pirshu chachamim harishonim. This is how the rabbis explained, our elder rabbis, our sages, dvarim shehem kedvash v'chalav yitach leshonech, things that are like honey and milk, they should be under your tongue. In other words, these teachings should be very kept secret to only a select group. Now, the Rambam goes on to say, Kol advarim elo, these things, shedibarnu binyan zeh, that we spoke about over here, Kimal midlihem, they're like a drop in the bucket. Udvarim amukim, they're so deep, aval enam ka'omek inyan perik rishon v'sheni. He goes, the Rambam says, but they're not like the first and second parak. Here the Rambam's writing in the fourth chapter of Foundations of Torah, and he's talking about another level. There are two levels. The first two chapters are the highest level, the most esoteric teachings. The second chapters he talks about more of creation, of different levels of the stars and how he goes into details of the different parts of matter, etc. It's like more of like a physics kind of teaching and other things explaining about the physical world. In addition, the Rambam says, and he says the second and third chapter is what we call Maseh Bereshit, the actions of creation. Right? God created the world, so the world is a physical world. There's a lot of laws of how the world works. So the Rambam was very also into physics. Because the rabbis also said these things shouldn't be studied in too much of the masses. But you take one person, you teach him these things, again in a quiet way. The Rambam says, what's the difference of teaching Maseh Mekavah, the work of the chariot, which was the most esoteric teachings, and the teachings of creation here, learning about the physical world? The Rambam says, that the work of the chariot, even one individual you don't teach. He has to be very, very special. That he's wise, that you just give him a little bit and he understands. But when it comes to teaching him about the physics of the world, you can teach an individual, even though he doesn't understand by himself. You can expand and expand his horizons and teach him more. You can teach him as much as you want to expand his knowledge. So the Rambam says, why not teach in public these things? And he says, "Lafish ein kol adam yesh lo dad rechava." Not everyone has the ability, the ability to grasp the explanation of these things in a clear way. And in a confusing people, there's so many things in this world for us to know, and why get stuck on things that's hard for us to understand. So the Rambam says not everyone is able to grasp Maaseh Bereshit. Okay, the Rambam goes on to say, "Bizman shadam itbodem b'dvarim e'eh," when a person contemplates on these things. Umakir kol haburim malach v'galgal, he understands all the creations of God that God created in the world, from angel level to the different spheres that God created, the Adam, the Chayotzebo, and mankind, and all the different other parts of the world. V'yireh chochmaton shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chol ha'yitzurim b'chol haburim. He'll see the wisdom of God and all of God's creations. Mosifa aval hamakom. This will add His love to Hashem. And he will love and want to cleave to God. And he'll feel his lowness as a human being. When we start to realize and grasp how great the universe that God created, this will bring us to fearing God and realize how great God is beyond our grasp, of course. He tries to compare himself with one of the angels, right? One of these holy things that God created. And all the more so one of these angelic, we spoke about the 10 different angelic levels, that don't have any physical form, it's all a spiritual form. We'll find that he's a vessel that's just full of embarrassment and empty, because we are nothing compared to the world, this amazing spiritual world that God created. So the Rambam is trying to show us, why the importance of studying these things, and why it's important for us to contemplate and meditate on the greatness of the world that God created. It brings us to humility. And the Rambam goes on to say in chapter 13 of, in law number 13 of chapter 4 of this Foundations of Torah, the 4 chapters dealt with 5 of the commandments we spoke about when I mentioned in the beginning. There are 10 laws. The first 4 chapters deal with 5 of those laws. That is what our rabbis call the orchard. We spoke about the orchard last time. So this is what the rabbi called about the orchard. And as we mentioned before, 4 entered the orchard. Although they were great sages of Israel and great wise men, but not all of them had the ability to understand the insights until their utmost, and that's what caused the problem. So they requested to enter spiritual levels that were beyond their grasp, and therefore that caused their downfall, as we said. So even great sages weren't able to enter those areas, all of them, except Rabbi Akiva, we spoke about last week. So therefore, the more so simple individuals like ourselves have to be so careful. We try to rise on these high spiritual levels and realize that these things require tremendous purification, a tremendous preparation before we enter these areas. And the Rambam goes on to say, and I say, a person is not suitable to enter, to go into this orchard. Only a person who has filled his stomach with bread and meat. What is he referring to? It's, of course, it's an expression. A person can't jump to high levels of spirituality unless he first has a great background of lechem and basar. What is this lechem and basar? Rambam says, to know what is prohibited and what is allowed, from the commandments. A person has to understand the 613 commandments of the Torah before he can go up into prophetic levels. How could he dare have the arrogance to do such a thing without knowing Torah, without knowing what the commandments mean, without studying the bread and butter? He goes, even though these things are called small things. Our rabbi said, Davar gadol, maseh mekava. What is considered a big thing? Maseh mekava, the work of the chariot. What is a small thing? Havayad Abaye veRava. Rav and Abaye were these Amoraim, and they were the rabbis of the Talmud. And those, compared to the maseh mekava, the Rambam says, they're considered small things. But nevertheless, the Rambam says, we must first learn the Talmud. Because they straighten out a person's understanding before anything. And he said, that is what Hashem has influenced this world to make the world a better place to live in. In order to inherit the world to come. And these things are reachable for someone great or someone small, whether it's a man, for a woman, someone who has a great knowledge, or someone who has less of understanding. The Talmud and Jewish law, these things, the Rambam says, are a necessity to begin, and that's where it all begins. We must begin in that area. And once we began in that area, we can go on to further our knowledge and go for prophetic study, to study the workings of the chariot, the workings of creation. That requires first a great knowledge of the basics, the Talmud itself. And that's what the Rambam requires, and stressing the necessity and the importance of first getting familiar with our Jewish law. And that's extremely important. The Talmud goes on to bring down another source over here. It says, Tanu Rabbanan, we learn in the tractate of the Talmud in Sukkah, Shmonim v'talmidim ayu lo lehillel hazaken. We're going to see why I'm bringing down this particular source now. There were 80 students of Hillel HaZaken. I'll explain to you who these rabbis were. Hillel HaZaken, in a moment I'm going to talk a little about who these rabbis were and give you some background. 30 of them were suitable to have the divine presence rest upon them like Moshe Rabbeinu, like Moses. And the other 30 were suitable that the sun and the moon would stand up just like it did for Joshua. Gadol Shebekulan, the greatest of all these students of Hillel HaZaken, Hillel the elder, was Yonatan ben Uziel. He was called Yonatan ben Uziel. And the smaller one, Katan Shebekulan, the smallest of the students, was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He was the smallest of the students. Amur alav Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. But now listen, he says the greatest was Rabbi Yonatan ben Uziel. The smallest was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. And he explains what does it mean to be a small student. Listen to this, how they describe what a small student's all about. Amur alav al Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. They said about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Shelo hiniach mikra u'mishnah, that he did not put aside one part of the Bible, one Mishnah, Talmud, one bit of the Talmud, one halachot v'agadot, any law or any kinds of our teachings in the Midrash, diktukei Torah v'diktukei Sofrim, again, any kinds of rabbinical teachings, Torah teachings, kalim v'chamim, kal v'chomer. Kal v'chomer is a way of learning out the Torah. And for example, a person could lift 100 pounds, surely he can lift 50 pounds. So a lot of times we use that kind of teaching related to Torah. Gzerot shavot, gzera shava means to compare different parts of the Bible. We can make comparisons according to words that are similar. Tkufot, gematriot, understanding the calendar, numbers, sichat malachei hasharet, understanding the angelic language, what the angels speak. Sichat shedim, understanding how the shedim, which are, you can say, the spirits, the way they talk. And the way trees would be able to understand the language of Tkalim, Mishalot, Kovsim, all kinds of different parables of foxes, Davar Gadol, Davar Katan, large things and small things. What is Davar Gadol? Maseh Mekava. Maseh Mekava refers to the working of the chariots. Davar Katan, the small things, refers to the work of the Talmud, Abai Verava. Right? Studying the Talmud. Lekayem Mashenemar, to fulfill what it says, Lanchil Ohava Yesh, to inherit those who I love, Yesh. Yesh literally refers to Yesh, means having. What is it? And I will fill their treasure houses. So Yesh is the same letters meaning as a present. So God fills the present, gives them inheritance of all these presents. And the Talmud says, wow, this is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who was an expert in all these areas of study of Torah. Think about how great Gadol Shebekulan, how Yonatan ben Uziel, he was the greatest of them. Wow, what kind of rabbi was he? Alachat kama v'chama, all the more so, right? Amur alav Yonatan ben Uziel, they said about this greatest of all students, B'sha'ah sheyoshev osek b'Torah, when he sits and he studies Torah, Kol ov sheporeach alav miyad nisraf. Birds that would fly over his head would just be cindered, they would burn up, just because the energy, the spirituality of that person, any bird that would fly over his head would totally be singed by the energy, the fire of Torah that would come out of the Rabbi Yonatan ben Uziah. So we see here in this Talmudic passage, it's fascinating what these great rabbis that we are talking about, how much background they had, how much knowledge they had. And these were the ones that were able to walk through the Pardes, walk through the orchard. Only after they were brilliant scholars and spent their entire lifetime studying, investing in Torah. Once they reached these levels, they were capable of being able to enter these special levels of spirituality we spoke about. Well, God willing, we're going to stop here and continue our next lesson in these lines, continuing our teachings on prophecy. So I hope you enjoyed the second lesson of our series on prophecy. So bye for now. Take care.